Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope everyone had a really productive and good week. Today's video, we're gonna talk and go back to software developer life. I think this is episode 7 out of 1,000 that I wrote. Anyways, in this video, we're gonna talk about a handful of really good habits, well, in my opinion, really good habits of any software developer, and we're just gonna run through them and let's just start, all right? Let's do it. First helpful habit, and I think this one might be the easiest and almost a no-brainer, but I just want to put it in the list, is pull the latest code very often as you can. Usually when you're working, you're going to be developing on your branch or your feature, and other people are going to be developing in parallel with you. A really good habit while we're doing parallel development, you, the rest of your team, your coworkers, we have to periodically keep up to date or in sync with the rest of the team, which means pulling in the latest changes every day or multiple times a day. Not only do you pull in the most recent changes, but keep up to date with other people's pull requests, check out what other people are doing. This kind of depends on how big your project is. When the project is pretty small, you can probably get a good idea of what everyone's doing, but obviously, if the project is really big, there's a ton of developers, you can't keep up to date with everything, but just try your best. So sync the code, figure out what everyone else is doing, and you're gonna be in much better shape, all right? Second really good habit of any software developer is to always be as consistent as possible. And what do we mean by consistent? Consistency is probably one of the number one, if not the most important trait in any software engineer or any good worker, but it's just a matter of keeping the expectation level equal to what you deliver and always doing that all the time. So if you set a very high expectation for yourself, make sure you deliver close or if not equal to that expectation. You don't want to over or undershoot it because that just kind of looks a little bad and it gives off the impression that you can't give the right expectations on what you're going to work on. Once we get into a good habit of creating that expectation and delivering on that level, we just have to make it consistent and do that week after week, month after month, etc., etc. And trust me, if you can do that and be really consistent about it, it's really good. All right, that was point number 2. Third point is going to be a software developer courtesy point, but you have to always notify people when you make changes that affect what they're working on. If you push up a brand new code, which actually might break the system or require extra dependencies for another developer, it's your responsibility to notify everyone. You don't want to just make the change on your own and it kind of breaks other people's flow. So just notifying other people or just making sure everyone's aware of how you're changing things, how your changes affect the system, it's just going to make people really appreciate you a lot better. No one likes random changes happening behind the scenes and they don't really know about it. This is just really common courtesy, and that's point number 3. All right, notify anyone if your changes affect them. All right, my fourth point is to make sure when you merge your code or you merge your features, don't make it too big. Many times I see developers who just go into a cave and work on their features for a month or multiple weeks, and when they're done, they just create this huge code review, which is thousands and thousands of lines of code, and it's really tough to make sense of such a big change. When your merges are way too big or consist of way too many changes, it actually just reflects on pure laziness on your part because you didn't take the time to really break down your task, set mini milestones and submit the code cleanly. You just kind of plopped thousands of lines of code into the branch and no one appreciates this. When things get way too big, just start breaking down the tasks logically and doing code reviews and merges based on those logical units. I need to fix A first. After I do that, I'll handle B and C. After that's done, I'll do my last review, which will be part D. Just break it apart and make it easier for other people to review what you've done. Huge code reviews or mergers are always bad. And when I see something that's, well, everyone's guilty of this. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure all of you have been guilty of it, but it's really impossible to review thousands of lines of code changes. It's just too much for one person to look at and digest in a reasonable fashion. All right, so that's point number 4. Make sure your merges aren't too big. My 5th and last good habit of any software developer is another common courtesy habit, and this is if you're gonna make changes, substantial changes to someone else's code that you didn't originally write, please let them know. I'm not talking about a little fixing a typo in the comment or renaming a variable. This is if you didn't author the code, but you're thinking of making substantial changes to some piece of code, some library or some class, make sure you let the other person know that you're gonna do this. It's just common courtesy. This doesn't apply if someone has already left the company. If the original author has left that code and isn't even at the organization anymore, then obviously you can go ahead and change it. But more often than not, there's gonna be a lot of code throughout the organization and everyone's touching a lot of different parts that are authored by different people. The reason why this is a good common courtesy is if you make a change to someone else's code without really letting them know a good reason or why you're making a change to their code, it's kind of a little personal on their part, kind of like, oh yeah, this guy, my code wasn't really good enough, or this guy thought my code was shitty, so he went ahead and fixed it. That's probably the default conclusion that many developers go to when other people change their code. So it's just a really good habit to let the other person know when you're gonna change something. There's definitely a good reason for you to change this piece of code. You're not making it worse. Well, I hope you're not making it worse, but if there's a good reason for you to make the change, just communicate it to the original author and it's gonna be a really happy world, all right? That was point number 5. All right, guys, that was the end of this video. Pretty quick and easy and hopefully straight to the point video. I just wanted to give 5 really good habits for any software developer. These might be a no-brainer, but it's good to just be cognizant of them all the time so you don't kind of slip up and make a 4,000 line code review, all right? Don't do that. I hope these habits were helpful. Hopefully you can apply them to wherever you're at, maybe even in academics or if you're working. If you follow these 5 things, obviously this is just my opinion and not a Bible or anything, but I do think these handful of things are helpful, so I hope you enjoyed it, all right? Please give me a like, share this video, leave me a comment if you have any questions, and I'll see everyone next week, all right? Take care.